Hello, and welcome to Hanratty and Karate. Sorry I missed you the last week or so. I did have a birthday in there, and it is golfing season here, so I'm cracking on with that. Anyway, just catch up with it a little bit. I hope everybody's doing okay. Usually it's a quiet time in our dojo through the summer. We go down to summer hours where we just run one mixed class a day, which I find is always helpful for the beginners more than the advanced, but it doesn't do them any harm. I can continue doing the basics and perfecting the basics. So anyway, yesterday I went and had a look at a local tournament. We'd been invited and we'd sent a few entries in. And this is one of the major organizations that run tournaments all over the world, actually. So one of my students came up to me and posed a very good question, actually. He'd been listening to a couple of podcasts, and he just asked me, how come there's so many different karate organizations all proposing to do the same style, like Shotokan, for example? And I had a good think about this. And my analogy to him was, it's almost like religion. There's supposed to be one Christian religion, but there's so many branches and sects in it and offshoots that even though they're all Christian, they're all supposed to be different, and they all say we're the best. Like there's Episcopalian, Baptist, Southern Baptist, Protestant, Lutheran, all say they're Christian, right? And I'm sure it's the same with the Muslim religion. I'm not a big religion fan. If you know me, I'm a card-carrying atheist. But I could see the analogy straight away. And where you get these big organizations, in my mind, that's akin to these big mega churches, which, of course, are only out for the money. And they demand the money from people, and they brand themselves as elite. And this took me on a little sidetrack thought as to why Western karate was so different from the original Okinawan and the latter Japanese karate. Well, the latter Japanese karate was kind of a natural lead-in to the westernized karate because of the marketing done by the JKA in the late 50s, early 60s. So what you've got is the Western ideology of a brand. They all want to have a brand. Now, it's done with sports personalities, it's done with entertainers, it's done with politicians. That's their brand, all right? And they market it to their followers and to everybody they think will benefit them in followers. So this is what you have with karate organizations. Karate, to my mind, is a self-defense art, and it is an art. It takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of practice, it takes a lot of refinement, and you're never going to get there because your body is not going to let you. As you get older, you're going to lose certain attributes, range of motion, speed, mental acuity. All of these start to drop off once you've passed your prime. It's just like once you've passed your procreation period, nature's really got no use for you. It's just your mind keeping yourself going. So it's not really like that with karate. You can still take an awful lot from your training and your practice every day. It's just like keeping fit. But you get a little bit more out of it because you can go in depth into it. I'm not saying you have the time when you retire, but it's a good thing to do with your time when you retire. I really like to do a lot of research on karate, and I read a lot of books. I just got a couple by a guy called Hermann Bayer, PhD, and it's mostly about Okinawan karate, but there's a lot of really good stuff in there, and you can see how it evolved into the Japanese karate. Now, the karate I do is Shotokan, always has been. I haven't done anything else. I have been to other seminars. I've been trained with other styles. I even learned different kata from other styles when I was taking officiating courses for the All Styles, WKF, as it is now. It was WUKO then. But what comes out, still comes out, is a lot gets lost in translation. And this is more than true of karate. It's more than true of religion, of course. Everybody interprets their book, whatever book they're reading, differently. and they'll go, oh, we didn't really mean that, or this means that means that. In other words, it doesn't end up being true. It doesn't end up being the word of the Almighty, whichever one you look at. It just ends up being your interpretation or your definition of it. So it's just as open to fallacy as anything else. And it's the same with karate. Now, I said, I don't know if it was the last podcast or the one before, everybody does it different and everybody is built differently. But what you get is organizations who try to promote a sense of elitement, if that's a word. But they think they're elite because they say, we are the keeper of traditional karate, or we are the one organization because we've been around a long time. Now, I was JKA from the first day I put on a gi. I didn't know I was JKA, but that's what part of my membership went to. And I was JKA for a long time, 30-odd years, before I broke from them and decided that I could probably do just as good a job. It wasn't that I could do just as good a job, it was the fact that there's nobody in my area that I could learn from, and I was sick and tired of traveling 3,000 miles. And plus the person that I'd picked to train under as my sensei, taking place of the Noida sensei, was a little bit more interested in the politics and how to spread his brand, if you like, rather than how to teach workable karate that you could take out and use. So if we look at this and we go back to Okinawa, the karate that they were training in originally was extremely usable. And it got watered down to the extent where it's not usable and the competitions are pretty farcical. People will change the rules just because they say this is the way we do it. And it's ridiculous because competition is not karate. All right? If you're in karate just for competition to win yourself a few medals, you got all the wrong reasons as far as I'm concerned. Maybe it's a good, valid reason for a lot of people out there. Certainly is for a lot of people who run dojos and want to maintain a large membership, and they put people into competitions and then they promote them as, oh, we have so many gold medal winners, national champions and international champions. It's a great way of promoting your brand, but it's not true karate. And over the last, 12, 15 years, I've really started going into why I do karate. And I do it because I love it, first of all. It has amazing benefits for me in particular, and also to the people I teach from what I gather and the feedback that I get. And I'm not saying that what I teach is the absolute best. It's what I know. You can only teach what you know. Don't try to teach what you don't know. You'll pretty soon come to grief. But teaching karate has given me a lot of benefits. It's also sharpened my mind, and it's given me a question and attitude as to why I teach the way I do and why I teach what I do. Now, I'd say over the last 12 or 15 years, as I say, I've started to teach karate with an application to usage. So this means really looking at the kata. I do not believe that you should ever look at kata from a competitive point of view. That is an absolute farce. Somebody doing a dance a little bit better than you gets a gold medal. I'm sorry, that just doesn't work. And it's the same thing with kumite. A kumite is only an impression of what you can do. And very often it's probably the most gymnastic or fastest or the flashiest, if you like. A lot of the techniques that score high scores in competition matches, you would get yourself killed trying them in the street. There's very few people I've seen that can put a good karate technique to use in the streets. And that was in the early days when not an awful lot of people had been aware that they'd suddenly been hit with a urumawashi to the head or something like that, or swept off the feet with a ashibarai. If you read Patrick McCarthy, and I urge everybody to do so, he's not a Shotokan practitioner. He's pretty eclectic in what he does, but he has his own theories on Okinawan karate and the development of karate. Excellent, excellent historian. One of his theories, which I really liked, was his HAPV, HAPV, which is Habitual Acts of Physical Violence. Now, this really resonated with me because coming from a place like Liverpool, there are habitual acts of physical violence that you can see. I've been in quite a few street fights. As a cab driver in Liverpool, you tend to get in a few street fights, rowdy fares or people who don't want to pay your fare or whatever. But the habitual acts of physical violence tend to make themselves obviously known almost straight away. Your standard street fighter in Liverpool will come at you with a headbutt almost immediately, all right? If he's done a bit of a training, he might drop his left leg or his right leg back, and you know you've got maybe a bit of a boxer on your hands or somebody who can use a kick or something like that. There was very few trained in martial arts in the early 70s when I was young and getting into trouble. So you kind of knew what was coming. It was a headbutt, and straight away you could bring up your elbow. And this was a technique that I had gathered from karate and put it straight into my self-defense repertoire. Proved very, very effective. The other was the use of close quarter knees. I just love close quarter knees. They work amazingly. So if you're elsewhere in the world, there's probably habitual acts of physical violence that you can recognize in your own country or your own culture. I know for a fact that I was in an argument once in Greece and the guy tried to slap me. Apparently it's a big insult if somebody slaps you in the face there. Well, it's a big insult anyway, come to think of it. But when you're slapping, it's not a direct straight linear move. It tends to be a circular or parabolic move coming from outside, which leaves somebody like me who's had a little bit of training able to move inside and negate the technique or negate the offensive movement. So these are habitual acts of physical violence. Some places may kick straight away. Some people try to charge you down, take you to the floor straight away. This is quite common. So traditional karate where they step back in a straight line, not really good for that, unless you scoot your feet back and you can press down on the guy coming in at you from, say, a rugby tackle kind of deal. You're much better off trying using an angular defense. And this is taught in a lot of katas, but people just don't seem to see it. So I was just reading an interesting part of this guy's book. His name's Hermann Bayer, PhD. And he postulates that a lot of the katas are hidden techniques. They hid them. And this is particularly so when the katas were exported to Japan. The Heian katas, most of the offensive and deadly movements were taken out of them, but they're all pretty much based in Kankudai and Jinte, which is Gankaku in Shotokan words. And you can see that. And they're pretty deadly movements. But you would get the different ways that they hide the movements. Like you would get blocks going forward, as you do in Heian Shodan, rather than going back or alternating between dropping back and then going straight on the offensive. So from defense to offense, which is a particular favorite of mine. So a lot of these movements were hidden in them, and the katas were watered down into the Heians, and the techniques that were hidden quite well. Now, everybody's going to say, oh, I do it this way, I've got this application for this, and I've got this application for that. And they're probably all right. My philosophy is, if you can make it work for you, then it works. But make it work in a realistic situation. When you look at sports kumite, for example, sports fighting, you see nothing of the kata in there. It's just an impression of aggression. It's not real aggression, because the minute you do any real aggression, you're thrown out. It was like in the last Olympics when the guy kicked the other guy in the head with a moshi. Nice form, good technique. Probably wouldn't have worked in the street, but he didn't get the gold medal for that. And yet that's what he trained to do. Now, the other guy probably trained just as much with him as how to block. But he didn't get penalized for not blocking. No, he got the gold medal because he got kicked. I seen the same thing happen yesterday. Believe it or not, this organization, they did one-step sparring, which is, to me, a training drill. Absolutely useless as competition format. So it was one-step sparring, a samponsu Sampon, if you know what I mean. Sampon kumite. So one guy announces his attack. He announces it. The other guy acknowledges it. Right? They had to acknowledge it. Then you step forward, punching 3 times to a specified target you've just announced. So the guy absolutely knows it's coming. He blocks 3 times, counters once. Same thing going back. Same thing Chudan. So I had a student, very strong, very fast, and this is an adult male, attacks down into Gedambarai, which is a totally unrealistic stance for any kind of kumite. Gedambarai announces his attack, Jodan, drives forward, other guy failed to block, got smacked right in the mouth. He got the match. Now, I really, really had a hard time with that. So the same guy with the next competitor didn't punch him in the face, but did plow him with a Chudan. Didn't block again. And the other guy again gets penalized. So the guy who got hit in the mouth and then got hit in the gut got the match on a basic training drill. I was, to say disgusted would have been, putting it mildly. And being me, I'm not shy in letting people know that. So one of the judges had the cheek to try to come up to my guy and tell him why he didn't get the match. And I just chased him off. I said, don't listen to this guy. I said, you just do what I've been teaching you to do, and you'll be fine. This will get you killed in the street, which it will. So I had no compunction about telling him that. The other thing was in kata, this organization seems to change the movements in kata. They even drop some katas that were in the curriculum. I noticed that when I went to visit the Honbu in Japan, I did Jin as a kata. When at the end of the class, they said, do your own kata. So I did Jin. And then I had one of them come up, one of the instructors come up and goes, we don't have Jin in JKA anymore. Good job I didn't do Seisan, right? But anyway, if you're taking stuff out just to be different, you are cheating your students as far as I'm concerned. And if you go, oh, this is no longer Chudan, we've made this Gedan, that is cheating your students because you're only doing it to be different and to foster this sense of elitism that you want to make a mystical fog around what you're doing, if you like. And that is prevalent in a lot of styles. That it's like, as I said, religion. Put a fog around what you're doing, make it mystical, to hide your bullshit, if you like, and, you're going to get your followers. It's all a way of promoting your brand. It shouldn't be. We all know it shouldn't be. You should be true to your students. You should be true to yourself. You got to teach what you know. Don't try to teach what you don't know. And then certainly don't have your followers following along and doing exactly the same thing without knowing the reason why. None of them know the reason why. What can you say? Anyway, thanks for listening. Comments are always welcome. You take care. See you again.